The Urim and the Thummim. Does God play with dice? This is from the time of the Ark of the Covenant, when the first high priest was Aaron, the brother of the prophet Moses. Much of history of Judaism revolves around protocol, divine laws provided by the Hebrew God for his chosen people. The Bible contains entire books which revolve around appropriate behaviors and manners in which to worship God, centered for much of the text around the great temple in Jerusalem. But the passage of time has made much of what was then well known obscure to modern readers. While many of the ascribed behaviors are still unclear, aspects of the ceremonial heart of Judaism are often unclear. That's never more so than with the treasures of the house of God. One of the most interesting of these mysterious items was what is known as the Urim and Thummim, which has been tentatively translated to mean the lights and perfections. These two words refer to something at the heart of Hebrew ritual, something which apparently allowed for communication with God himself. What therefore was the Urim and Thummim? U-R-I-M and T-H-U-M-M-I-M. And what do we know? We can be certain that the Urim and Thummim were tangible objects. They were associated with the hoshen, the traditional vestment worn by the high priest of the Temple of Jerusalem. And here we are on firmer ground. We have a detailed description of the hoshen, the breastplate consisting of precious gems in a grid, which the priests wore on ceremonial occasions, and each stone on the grid represents one of the tribes of Israel. There were 12 stones. It seems that the Urim and Thummim, whatever they were used to ask questions of God through interaction with this breastplate. Most historic scripts and scholars suspect that the phrase refers to a set of objects, two objects that are used by the high priest, who would place them into a pouch within the hoshen. Once placed within the pouch, they would either answer a question said by the priest, or more obscurely reveal the will of God. And as a concept, they first appear very early in the Bible, in the book of Exodus, and there they are already associated with the sacred breastplate that has to be worn by Aaron in the holy place. But perhaps the biblical book of Samuel provides the modern reader with the most clues as to how they function. And here we find a passage that describes an attempt to identify a sinner within a group of innocent people using the mysterious objects. The high priest repeatedly divides the people into two groups and then asks the Urim and Thummim which of the two groups is a sinner, which of the two groups the sinner is in. And thus the pool of guilty candidates can be winnowed down until finally the wrongdoer is identified. And this tells us several revealing things about the operation of these objects. Firstly, they can only be asked questions with a binary answer, like a yes or a no, and so are limited to their operation. Secondly, it is the placing of the objects in the breastplate which provides the answer. Thirdly, most tellingly, they are able to reveal the truth about material things to the congregation as interpreted by the high priest. This appears therefore to be a form of what is called kleromancy, where the manipulation of the objects as interpreted by one with hidden knowledge can provide the answers. But a description of the objects themselves is wholly absent from the Bible. It seems plausible that the compliers of the Bible themselves did not know what they were, only their significance. The answers from God. Different versions of this event appear in different texts, suggesting that the operation of Urim and Thummim was familiar as only the details of the test as it happened vary. In another version of the passage, it is Saul and Jonathan have been separated from the rest of the people. In this version, there is a distinction between Urim and Thummim, which clearly indicates that they are two different objects. The text of the Septuagint states that Urim would indicate Saul and Jonathan, whereas Thummim would indicate the people. A verse directly previous to this explanation uses the phrase that means inquired of God, which indicates that these items and the ritual associated with them opened a direct line of communication with God himself. Whether God was bothered with the interruptions was not recorded. However, the process by which communication was established has also been recorded in detail. The priest would stand in front of the congregation and ask his question in a clear voice, which all could hear. He would also place the Urim and Thummim in his breastplate and then fall into a swoon as he received his reply. God had provided him with an answer which he would then share with those present. A roll of the dice. The Urim and Thummim were often identified with the gems on the breastplate, which are recorded as having letters engraved on them. It was said that these would miraculously light up to give the divine answer on being asked, hence maybe the putative translation of perfect light or the otherwise mysterious words. But there are other possibilities as to the translation, which may shed a more practical aspect on the use of the objects. It could be that the word Urim is associated with guilt, whereas Thummim is associated with innocence, hence perfection. But now it should be clear that another, more immediately useful application of the procedure can be found that fits all the available facts. Urim and Thummim were used to draw lots. The two items were placed in a pouch, and then whichever was drawn would decide the matter, similar to tossing a coin or the roll of a die. The Bible even goes so far as to offer explicit support for this assumption. Chapter 14 of the first book of Samuel, in the ancient Greek translation, refers directly to Urim and Thummim as like drawing lots. Most scholars and historians in the present day lend their support to this understanding. So it would seem that what the objects were is somewhat beside the point. Both the Urim and the Thummim were small, similar objects, perhaps made of wood and bone, to be put aside inside the pouch. Whichever was drawn would decide your fate, and it was that simple. God had spoken. And this is by B.P. and Dimri on Historic Mysteries. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.